Hey guys, so I've seen a lot of information swirling around the internet right now about Wrath of the Lich King DPS tier lists, Wrath of the Lich King phase by phase tier lists, and I kind of wanted to take the amalgamation of the best information that I knew and present to you guys recommendations for alts and for GDKPs. I currently run GDKP myself. The server has almost 2,500 people in it, so I like to think I have a good foundation of knowledge for GDKPs. And for Wrath itself, I have played on a few Wrath private servers, 2 entirely, a few of them at launch, and I wanted to go over everything that I possibly know for your benefit. And I found 2 very good websites to help base this decision making on, and at the end I'll show specs that I would recommend for getting into GDKPs, getting invites, and specs that are purely for parsing. And this is the first website. I found this this website, and all links will be in the description below once I'm done with the video. And this article by B Wood is very, very good. It uses facts and statistics from the original Wrath of the Lich King to post an average DPS for ICC by spec. This is old data, really old data, but it clearly shows a nice description of what's happening. Rogues at the top, then mages and warlocks, and this is for every fight. This is average DPS. It even has a description of the top 200 for Festgut. Festgut is a patchwork-esque fight, so you just stand in place and do as much damage as you possibly can. And you can see that honestly it's pretty normalized. They're all within like 10% of each other at the top end, like all the normal specs. Shadow Priest up to Rogue I would consider normal specs. Anything below that are kind of more memey specs like Blood DK DPS. But definitely take a look at this website if you want some old data that would help you in your decision making. But I found another website to juxtapose that with, and that is a Warmain DPS ranking. This is from an avid Warmain player, and he ranks each DPS tier per item level for each raid. And this is very good information as well. You should definitely take a look. This is the funniest part. Good computer connection over brain over experience for skill over gear score, which is so true. Just because someone has good gear doesn't mean they have the skill to use it, or the experience to boot, or the brain to click the buttons. But definitely take a look at this, leaving both of these in the description. And using these lists and a bunch of other videos that I've watched, I kind of created a mock raid. And as a GDKP leader, this is probably the raid that I'm going to try to shoot for. The type of comp that I want 3 DKs. I want a blood tank. I want Frost and Unholy. Unholy brings incredible buffs to the raid. I also want a Protection Paladin. The blood can swap out for a Prot Warrior or a Feral Druid, depending, and that's okay. I would prefer a blood tank. I really like their single target tanking, but whatever happens for tanking. But I mean, the Prot Paladin is mandatory. They're just so overpowered for the face. I would try to bring 2 rogues, 2 survival hunters, a few druids of each spec, a few shamans of each spec, few paladins. I don't have a ret in here, but it could be I left 2 slots open. This is just covering all the buffs, and it's, as you can see, there's a lot of room to play around, right? That's the most important thing. There's a lot of room to play around, and everything can basically be used at any point, and you're really taking player over skill in the majority of these scenarios, which really needs to be banged in home, is that your class doesn't really matter. Anything can fit into any comp in Wrath. That's the beauty of Wrath that I find so enjoyable. Now, talking about that, I'm going to go down to my personal tier lists. These are my personal tier lists based on all the information that I found. And basically, between Nax and Uldor, anything is playable. That's why I put them in A and S. The only reason I put these in S is because there's points where these classes just pull ahead of the others that you just have to highlight. DKs are crazy early on. Like Howling Blast is insane ability that hits everything, drops the disease on everyone. It does so much damage and is just baked into the rotation. Warlock's Pump. You need a demo lock in every raid. That buff is way too important to give up. Warlocks are really good early on, especially the Cleaving and Nax's demo. Super good. Rogues just destroy everyone. That's why I put 2 into my comp. Rogues do so much damage. Holy and Prot Paladin, you need at least 2 of these in every raid. 2 Paladins in every single raid. And Hunter, Druid, Mage, Shaman, Priest are all good in their own right. You could easily have 2 or 3 of these in each slot. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that I would steer clear of is probably a warrior. People are only going to want one warrior. You know, all that discrimination against rogues, it's coming back right to you, this tier. Warriors do not scale well in the beginning. They're going to be very low on the meters. I truly believe that, based on my experience. Even with all the armor pent stuff from ICC, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to help. Moving out of Old War into TOC and ICC, we see rogues maintain their spot, mages and warriors start to rise up, and you still need a holy paladin and a prot paladin, so those are going to be very good classes. Also, rets start to rise up at this time as well into the mid tier, upper mid tier. The only thing that switches, I swapped DK with Warlock, DK and Warlock down a tier, because they're still really good. They're great alts to have, they're great characters to have, they do lots of damage, but just not as much importance or damage as these 4 in my opinion. And I really want to highlight that I think Shamans fall in towards TOC and ICC. Enhancement Elemental absolutely blast and Nax, maybe even Old War, but towards TOC and ICC they start to fall off a bit. So it's important to highlight that Shamans, it might be a DPS Shaman, it might be harder to get a raid slot, because Resto Shaman can provide your Bloodlust. Your totem buffs are almost provided entirely by other people in passive form, like Frost DK provides icy talons, and that is the haste buff that would be provided by a Wind Fury totem. So you're not necessarily required anymore, which sucks. So it might be harder to get a raid spot. So all in all, if you want to parse your brains out and don't really care about the competitiveness of a raid slot, these are the classes I would recommend. There's going to be a million rogues running around, but they're going to do so much damage. It's going to be so fun. There's going to be a million mages, but guess what? Arcane mages destroy the first 2 tiers, and fire just rises up in the second. I don't even know how many people told me they're re-rolling DK. So if you want to be one of those re-rollers and risk trying to get a spot, be my guest. You're going to do lots of damage and have a good time. But DK is one of those parsing classes that I would recommend. Warlock is going to do damage in the beginning. It might fall off a little bit once the melee start to scale. But I think it's a good, healthy class to have the entire X-Pack as an alt. And demo is required, at least 1 demo in every single raid. So you might always have a raid spot. If you want to get an invite to GDKPs, I think these are the classes people are going to avoid. Hunters, Fusion had a War main sign up, and we only had 1 Hunter out of 80 people. I really think people are going to be rolling off or avoiding Hunters. They think they're bad. I think they're not. You're going to want a Survival Hunter in raids, maybe 2 Hunters. Marksman starts getting much better in ICC, so Hunter is a safe class to get an invite on. I haven't heard many people talk about Shadow Priest. I think this is still a very good class. That was the class I played on Warmid. I played a Shadow Priest and a Boomkin. You do lots of damage, and even into ICC, so Priest is going to be a safe class to pick for sure. If Resto Shaman, I haven't heard many people saying that they're staying as a Resto Shaman. Heard a lot of them are re-rolling Holy Paladin. I think this is a very safe class to get an invite. Druid, all specs are valuable, even the tank. So I haven't heard many people talking about playing Resto Druid. That's a sleeper. I have heard people talking about Feral Cat, but Resto and Balance are good classes to get invites on because Balance Druids bring a crazy amount of utility. I've heard so many people already leveling Paladins, specifically Prot Paladins and Holy Paladins, people re-rolling Paladins. So there's going to be a ton of Paladins. So it might be the most parsy character in terms of tanking and healing, but there's going to be so many of them around. So if you're worried about getting invites to groups, people are going to love you as a Paladin, but if they already have a Paladin, they don't really need you. So there's going to be so many of those running around. It might be hard to get into GDKPs. And then Warriors. In the beginning, there's going to be a ton of Warriors trying to say that it doesn't really matter, that they don't do as much damage because they're too good or something like that. But I think that Warriors, there's going to be way too many of them, and they're not going to be doing enough damage. And in the beginning, there's not going to be that many brought. Maybe towards ICC, it's going to be a step up, and there's going to be more Warriors around. But in the beginning, there's going to be way too many of them, and it'll be really hard to get a spot. So that's all I really have. I really think that you can't go wrong picking any class. You can make your way with any class, any spec. that, well, except for Frost Mage and PvE. Maybe Sub Rogue too. But all in all, Wrath is very nice for players who just want to focus on their character and playing the best they can possibly be. You can't go wrong with what you pick. You're gonna have a good time. You can either parse, you can be the utility player, or you can just do what you want and whatever happens, happens. It doesn't really matter. But you're gonna have a fun time in Wrath. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me on Discord, or drop by my stream. I stream on Twitch very often. I'm gonna be streaming a lot of Wrath of the Lich King once it comes out, twitch.tv/ItsPummel, link in the description. And I encourage you to look at these DPS rankings for yourself. They use actual data and experience, and maybe that can help you solidify your decision even further. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll catch you at the next one. Peace.